Okay, to another of our headline stories today. Libya is marking 13 years since the invasion by NATO forces, which resulted in the toppling of the country's leader, Moammar Gaddafi. The North African nation was one of the continent's most prosperous nations at the time, but descended into chaos and a prolonged military conflict which is still ongoing today. This is how it all unfolded.
Moammar Gaddafi has lost legitimacy to lead, and he must leave.
We came, we saw, he died.
You showed the world you would get rid of a dictator and you would choose freedom. Vive Benghazi! Vive la Libye! Vive l'amitié entre la France et la Libye!
Well, we can speak live now to Moussa Ibrahim, spokesperson for the then Libyan government under Colonel Gaddafi in 2011. We thank you for your time today. If we go back those 13 years and the start of NATO's offensive in Libya, what do you believe were the West's motives to launch the war?
There was a very clear path to peace in Libya through the internal Libyan social, religious, and political structure. As a matter of fact, by the 19th of March 2011, there was a clear tipping of the balance of power and balance of conflict towards a peaceful negotiation and ending of the limited civil conflict that took place in the country. Libyan tribes, Libyan religious leaders, political leaders were holding major talks and negotiations that would have ended the conflict within a few days or weeks at the most. The West understood this very well, understood that Libya was a sovereign country, the Libyan army was very strong, and the political leadership was very willing to make sure that Libya remains peaceful, strong, and sovereign. That's why they rushed the 1970 decree by the Security Council, and then the 1973, which allowed NATO to attack the country. And as a matter of fact, France could not wait to attack. It did so hours before the permission of the Security Council, leading to the murder of hundreds of Libyan soldiers, officers, and civilians, and the destruction of the whole country, as we can see today in 2024.
As I mentioned, you served as spokesperson for Moammar Gaddafi when that invasion began. Can I make it personal for a moment? How were you affected when the government was toppled?
My personal story, dear Yonan, is a very small detail in the misery and tragedy of my nation. All Libyans were greatly affected by this unjust attack on the sovereign country of Libya, one of the top performing countries, not just in Africa, but in the global south, as shown by all international reports, especially the United Nations Index for Human Development. All of your viewers can go back to the numbers in 2010 and 11 and can see how prosperous Libya was for all of its citizens. On a personal level, of course, I still lead with many others a genuine political movement from inside Libya to get Libyans to speak together, negotiate, and stop this military and foreign invasion that still continues until today. Libyans now are really desperate to sit and solve this crisis, but they are prevented from doing so by European ambassadors, by foreign military bases established in the country, and more than 20,000 foreign fighters admitted to by the Security Council still existing and causing havoc in the country 13 years after NATO intervention.
At that time, did you think there was a way out of the domestic violence, the scenes of unrest that had been going on in Libya for that time, that it was made clear that domestically this could be sorted out internally. Were there talks going on an international level about that?
There was a major internal dialogue inside Libya and another one overseen by the African Union. As for the United Nations, the Security Council and Europe, they refused to listen, and the Arab League, they refused to listen to any talk of peace and negotiation. Let's remember that the crisis in Libya started on the 17th of February, and within a week of this event, the Security Council was involved. It imposed sanctions on the country. It imposed a no-fly zone. And within a month, it attacked the country. This very speedy process of intervention shows that peace had no chance, dialogue has no chance, Libyan tribes had no chance to negotiate, religious Libyan leaders, political leaders, and the African Union. Let's remember not just what us in the Libyan government were saying, but let's remember what the great African Union was saying at the time, that Libya was indeed able to solve this crisis, that there were very clear positive signs of dialogue between Libyan factions, and that the Libyan army was strong enough to secure the borders of the country and to make sure that there is no civilian casualties and no terrorism established in Libya. Of course, with the destruction of the Libyan army done by NATO, Libya became haven for international fundamentalist terrorism, which later on spread to the Sahel region of Africa, which is now thriving in Mali, Niger, and other Burkina Faso and northern Nigeria.